Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Penetration Podcast, the place where we unpack all things self-esteem, dating, and relationships in the LGBTQ plus community. I am Danny, your self-esteem and dating coach for gay and bisexual men, and today we are tackling something I think a lot of you will resonate with, and that is breaking the cycle of dating the wrong type. And look, we have all been there before, right? You meet someone and at first they seem perfect, but days, weeks, or months in, the red flags start popping up and you realize you're caught in the same pattern as before. And then what do? Right? And for a lot of us, we've stayed because we're convinced it will be different this time. Does that sound familiar? Because I sure as hell know that I've been in that kind of situation before. And if so, then this episode is for you. So today we're going to identify why you gravitate towards the wrong people, how to recognize those patterns, and how to align your dating choices with your long-term goals. So stick around because we're diving deep, sharing personal insights and even a few eye-opening studies. So let us get into it. I don't want to waste any more time. So let's start with this question. What does it mean to date the wrong type, right? And for many of us, it's about a pattern, choosing partners who don't align with our values, don't meet our emotional needs, or aren't ready for the kind of relationship that we want or that we are looking for. And psychologists call this phenomenon the repetition compulsion. And it's the tendency to unconsciously repeat the same patterns from past relationships, which are often rooted in unresolved emotional needs from childhood. And in a 2021 article in Psychology Today, it explains that repetition compulsion is especially common in romantic relationships where we seek out familiarity, right? Even if that unfamiliarity if that familiarity is unhealthy. And here's an example. If you grew up, let's say with an unavailable parent, emotionally speaking, you might find yourself drawn to emotionally unavailable partners. It's not because you enjoy being ignored or dismissed or invalidated, but it's because your brain equates that dynamic with love, right? So growing up, I had a complicated relationship with my dad, plain and simple, right? I have no doubt that he loved me and my sister unconditionally, but he was more of a provider than he was a father, right? He was never truly emotionally available. So I always found it difficult to connect with him. I was always very close to my mom and my grandma. Those were like my ride or dies, obviously. And my sister growing up as well. We were super, super close. She was like my little protector. And after coming out of a 13-year relationship, one that I, to be honest with you, now recognize it had its own host of issues that I believe stem from my desire to be loved and accepted by unemotionally or emotionally unavailable people, I found myself having to navigate dating and my emotions in a whole new way. And initially, I attracted myself to men that gave me just enough attention to keep me hooked. I would obsess over meetups. I would replay conversations to find any mistakes that I made. And I became addicted to checking my phone and the apps throughout the day. I was stuck in this repetition compulsion. And it took an interaction with a specific guy. I will not say his name on here just to kind of respect his privacy and his identity. To identify, I had an emotional and mental challenge to overcome. To break down kind of what happened a little bit, he was this tall, handsome, incredibly fit, masculine, but also tender and very successful guy. And he knew exactly what he was doing in the bedroom. I would consider myself to be honest with you, I would consider, and I've said this before too, I would consider myself to be somebody who's a little bit more dominant in the bedroom. But with him, I was a complete ragdoll all the time, right? He just had that energy about him. And I found myself obsessing and hoping it would turn into a relationship. But he never gave me any indication he was looking for something serious other than saying it, but his actions never really aligned with his words. And one night, I remember specifically, I came over, and unfortunately, I wasn't ready to be the receiving partner in that situation, but he insisted that we mess around. And against my better judgment, I gave in. And just as I suspected, we had some issues. If you know, you know. And I left that night feeling completely defeated and embarrassed. And essentially, he ghosted me after that. And in that moment, I committed to doing the work, right? To digging in deeper than I ever had. And that situation, coupled with several negative interactions with men over the years, one resulting in ASA, adult sexual assault, helped me to realize I had to do things differently if I wanted to achieve my goals of having a serious relationship at some point. And 6 months later, I connected with my partner, and we've been together now for 3 years. Side note, that guy did reach out to me a couple of years later, and he did apologize, and he wanted to reconnect. I accepted the apology, but I did not accept reconnecting because I just didn't want to go down that road again. I knew my value, and I had set my boundaries early on, and I kept them. So let's break this down a little bit further. Why do you keep going for people who are not right for you? The first thing and the most common thing is the comfort zone, right? There's a familiarity that's there that feels safe. And even when it's toxic, it still feels safe, which is like the craziest twisted part about it. People often prefer familiar negative experiences over the uncertainty of the unknown. And this is why we might choose partners who mirror past relationships, even if they were not fulfilling, right? So think of it this way. Most people with anxiety will watch the same show or movie over and over again. Why? They know the outcome, right? My go-to, and don't judge me, is Harry Potter. I watch it and funny enough, actually, whenever my partner comes home from work, if I have a Harry Potter on, the first thing he says is, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "There's nothing wrong." And he's like, "You're watching Harry Potter again." I'm like, "Oh, I guess I'm feeling anxious." There's also Titanic and The Crown. So those are like my go-tos that I like to watch. The comfort lies in knowing the outcome, right? Knowing how it ends. It's predictable. Relationship and dating patterns work in a similar way, just more on a subconscious level. So it's possible you keep attracting yourself to the same guy over and over, hoping for a different outcome, knowing deep down it will likely end the same. And just so we're clear here, I've attached the article from Psychology Today explaining this exact pattern, the one that I mentioned previously. So if you want to reference it, you are more than welcome to reference it. The other thing here is chemistry versus compatibility. And let's talk about chemistry, right? We often mistake it for compatibility, but they are not the same thing. Chemistry is that like immediate spark. It's the excitement. And it can be overwhelming, right? It can be exciting, but it can also blind us to the red flags and the things that we should be looking out for. Compatibility, on the other hand, is about shared values. It's about communication styles. It's about long-term alignment. So the next time you go on a date and you feel that immediate attraction, hit pause. I am not telling you to ignore the feelings, right? Rather, I just want you to observe them. Use that excitement to ask the right questions. What are your values? What are you passionate about? Those questions, coupled with your excitement, will help you to determine how compatible you actually are. The other one here is the fixer mentality, right? And here's one that I see all the time. And I myself was guilty of for years. This is especially prevalent in the LGBTQ plus dating scene, where societal pressures and internalized homophobia can lead some of us to take on the role of caretaker in a relationship, but you can't fix someone who doesn't want to change. And trying to do that often leaves you drained, and it leaves you resentful and frustrated and angry. It's often easier to look outward than it is inward, because the problems seem to be easier to fix if they are visible, if they are tangible. But the truth is, our desire to fix others is a reflection of something that we have to fix within ourselves. If he continually chooses to not spend time with you, the question shouldn't be, why does he not want to spend time with me? What am I doing wrong? The question that you should be asking yourself is, why am I tolerating this, right? What wound do I need to heal to value myself enough to set a boundary and stick to it? All right, so now that we know why we're drawn to the wrong type, let's talk about how to recognize those red flags and those patterns. And the most common red flags that I see are emotional unavailability, right? Inconsistency, lack of communication, lack of accountability, overly controlling behavior, dismissive attitude towards your feelings. Those are some pretty major red flags that you want to take a look for. And some of the patterns you want to look out for and how to identify them is specifically based on those things that I just mentioned. The patterns are going to be, and again, what you experienced in your previous relationship and what you are currently experiencing in your dating experience. Did you find that in your previous relationship, the person that you were dating was not consistent with their communication, did not take accountability for their actions? And are you finding that any of that is popping up for you currently in your dating life or your dating situation? And the most important thing that you can do is learn how to identify these patterns. So I'm going to ask you some questions, and I want you to take some time to answer them. And don't worry if you don't get all of them right now. It's fine. I will provide you with the questions and the exercises in the description down below or in the description of this episode so you can reference it if you want to do it later. So the first thing is, do you find yourself always playing the caregiver role? That's the first question. The second question is, are you drawn to partners who prioritize their needs over yours? That's a deep think one for a little bit, right? That's going to take some time to actually process and to write out. The third one is, do your relationships tend to follow a similar trajectory? Those are the three questions that I want you to reflect on. And if you need to reference them again, feel free to rewind a little bit. Feel free to watch the episode again. I'm also going to provide you with those questions in the description down below. So take some time to reflect on these questions. And here is the exercise I want you to do for me right now. Write down, or later, either one, whatever you're most comfortable with. But write down your last 3 significant relationships. List what drew you to each person and what ultimately ended the relationship, right? I want you to look for common themes. Those are the patterns. Those are your patterns. And if you haven't had a serious relationship or a relationship of any kind, reflect on the people that you continue to connect with while you are dating. That way you can also identify certain patterns that are starting to form or could potentially be an issue in the long run. Now, let's talk about breaking the cycle, right? The key is to align your dating choices with your long-term goals. So if you haven't identified your long-term goals, that's okay. We can get into that. We will get into that in a little bit. The first thing that you have to do is clarify your values and needs. Take time to define what is truly important to you. Is it emotional support? Is it shared life goals? Is it a sense of humor? Write these things down and use them as your dating compass. The other thing here is slow down the process. In the age of dating apps, it's easy to jump into relationships super quickly. It happens all the time. But taking the time to truly get to know someone can save you a lot of heartache in the long run. And several studies have found that people who take time to establish a strong foundation report higher relationship satisfaction. And why is that? Once you've established a foundation, your ability to open up and freely express yourself increases, allowing for more vulnerability. And the ability to share your authentic self with your partner and be accepted is deeply satisfying, and it is deeply fulfilling. The other thing here is set boundaries, right? Boundaries are so important. They are essential for breaking toxic patterns. And if you notice early red flags, don't ignore them, right? I'm not saying for you to pick up on the red flag and just completely end the relationship right there. Take note of it, right? File it away so that if you start to notice a pattern of negative behaviors, then you can make the decision to step away from the relationship if it's not serving you, or that dynamic if it is not serving you. It's important to also communicate your concerns. And if they're not addressed, don't be afraid to walk away, right? If you struggle with boundaries, I completely understand. You are not alone in that. So many people struggle with setting boundaries. And I have several videos that I have done, several episodes that I have done talking about boundaries, identifying and boundaries and how to, or identifying your expectations and your needs and being able to set boundaries in order to protect yourself throughout the dating process and stay aligned with what your goals are. And finally, I want you to remember that breaking the cycle isn't just about choosing the right partner. It's about becoming the best version of yourself. And how do you do this? There are so many different options and so many ways of doing it. But the most common route that a lot of people take is therapy or coaching, right? Working with a therapist or a coach that can help you unpack these patterns and build healthier relationship skills. And if that's something that you're interested in, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to walk you through that process. There's self-care, right? So prioritizing activities that bring you joy and fulfillment outside of the relationship, whether it's hobbies or friendships or personal goals or building a rich, independent life that makes it less likely that you're going to settle for the wrong person because you have the ability to self-validate and to self-fulfill, right? Celebrate your progress. Change takes time. So celebrate the small wins. And maybe that means you set a boundary for the first time or you recognize a red flag early on. Those are huge steps. So make sure that you are celebrating those things as well, even if they don't seem like they are making that big of an impact, because they really, really are. All right, guys, let's have a quick recap just so that we can touch upon the things that we talked about in this episode. So breaking the cycle of dating the wrong type of guy starts with understanding your patterns. That's the first thing. Recognizing the red flags and aligning your choices with your long-term goals. It's not always easy. I understand it, but trust me, the work is worth it in the long run. If you found today's episode to be helpful, please share it with someone who might need it, or maybe you're the person that needed it. And do not forget to subscribe and leave a comment, and feel free to connect with me on any of my other social media platforms. I will leave the link in the description of this episode down below. And until next time, remember, you deserve a love that aligns with your values, and it starts by choosing yourself first. So take care, and I will see you in the next episode.